Afternoon, members. We have a quorum, and it's also the scheduled time. First of all, I would like to invite the representatives of the administration to join us. On the 25th of July, last Tuesday, the administration announced the arrangement of customs, immigration and quarantine of the Hong Kong section of the Guangzhou-Shenzhen-Hong Express Rail Link. I understand the members and the public are very much concerned about this issue, and I understand the administration is more than keen to attend the special meeting of the House Committee to explain the relevant arrangements to members. That's why I have decided to call the special meeting during the summer recess. I'm grateful to members for joining the meeting. The Secretary for Justice, the Secretary for Transport and Housing, and the Secretary for Security will now have the earliest possible opportunity to explain the details to you and answer your questions. I hope members will make good use of the 2 hours at this meeting to put questions to the Secretary for Justice, the STH and the S4S and their colleagues. This meeting will end at 4:30 p.m. today. May I remind members, if you wish to speak, please press the request to speak button. In deciding on the order of speaking for members, I will have regard to the previous record of members at special meetings in terms of the number of questions they've asked, their political affiliation, and the order in which members press the request to speak button. The administration has submitted papers. Also, there's a background brief prepared by the Secretariat. That's CB bracket 2, 1966/16 to 1701, and CB bracket 4, 1488/16 to 18. These papers have been forwarded to members. Dr. Fernando CHEUNG and Ms. Claudia MO have written in separately on the 27th of July to ask for written response from the administration on the co-location arrangement for the Hong Kong section of the XLL. The reply from the administration to members have been forwarded to members for your reference. Yet 2 days ago, I received a letter from Dr. Fernando CHEUNG indicating that he intends to move a motion on this item at this meeting. The motion has been tabled for your information. I will set aside about 10 minutes towards the end of the meeting for the committee to vote on the motion. And now we will proceed to the agenda item. I would like to welcome the Secretary for Justice, the Secretary for Transport and Housing, and the Secretary for Security and their colleagues for coming to the meeting. I will first invite the Secretary for Justice to say a few words before I open the floor to questions. Members, please be concise in asking questions, and I propose a 5-minute limit for questions and answers for each member, including the response from the administration. May I ask members to note that same as for the previous special meetings, there will be a verbatim record of this meeting. Now, I will first of all invite the Secretary for Justice to say a few words. Secretary, please. Now, how can this be? How is this right? Now, we have rules on the display of slogans. First of all, the slogans must be related to the subject matter today. But that's the chairman's podium. Yes, the deputy chairman is exhibiting a slogan. Yes, it's blocking my sideline, towards the government officials. So, deputy chairman, could you please adjust the position of the placard? But the podium is for the chairperson and the deputy chairman. I don't think that is the appropriate place for displaying placards. Mr. Lismack, what's the point of order? Now, because, I can't see the legal advisor because of that placard. May I now invite the Secretary for Justice to speak? Madam Chair, having discussed with Mr. Chen and Mr. Lee, we've decided I will speak on their behalf as well. On the 25th of July, the administration announced the customs, immigration, and quarantine arrangements of the Hong Kong section of the Guangzhou-Shenzhen-Hong Express Rail Link. On the same day, out of respect for the Legislative Council, we submitted a discussion paper to the Legislative Council and booklets on the arrangements. And we indicated that although this is a summer recess, the relevant government officials would be happy to attend special meetings of the Health Committee to explain the arrangement and to listen to members' views. I'm grateful to the chairman of the Health Committee for arranging this meeting at short notice. I'm grateful to members for attending the meeting too. High-speed rail link is now the trend of development around the world on high-speed transportation mode. And on the mainland, 80% of the large cities are already covered by high-speed rail link network. Now we want to enhance the competitiveness of Hong Kong. It is necessary that we build a express rail link. When we started planning for the express rail link, we already started considering the co-location arrangements for clearance procedures in relation to the express rail link. And at different stages, we indicated that we would actively look into the co-location arrangements. After many years of study and consideration, the administration believes it is necessary to put in place the co-location arrangements, because it is the best arrangement to ensure that it is the best arrangement for a high-speed rail link in Hong Kong. The express rail link is not the same as the intercity through train arrangement. The intercity through train is a point-to-point transport rail link, but for the express rail link is part of a transport network rather. Now, if passengers have to go through clearance on the mainland, it will, or at 2 points, it will be most inconvenient to them, and it will substantially undermine the efficiency of this travel mode. Now, during our discussion with mainland, both parties agree that three principles must be abided by in introducing co-location arrangement. First, it must be in line with one country, two systems and not against the basic law. Second, the arrangement is to make sure to give full play to the efficiency of the high-speed rail link, but then it must not undermine in any way the one country, two system policy. And then that's the first point. Secondly, the arrangement must be efficient and feasible. That means even if we comply with the basic law, we must also have regard to the practical operational needs. And thirdly, all procedures must have regard to security concerns. We must make sure that all security risks are properly addressed and plug any possible security loopholes. So on the basis of these principles, the SAR government has had the in-depth discussion with the mainland. We propose to adopt a three-step approach in implementing the co-location arrangement. Step one, to reach a cooperation arrangement in relation to the implementation of the co-location arrangement between the mainland and the Hong Kong SAR. Now, because the clearance procedures involve both sides, it is not possible for any unilateral arrangement on the clearance procedures. That's why both parties must come to an agreement. This reflects the one country, two systems arrangement. It also reflects the high degree of autonomy of the Hong Kong SAR. Now, the details have been explained in the paper submitted to the Legislative Council by the administration. I do not propose to repeat them here. Now, on the setting up of the main land port area at the West Kowloon Station, there are very divergent views in the community, but I would like to draw your attention to a number of points. First of all, for the Hong Kong section of the XRL, it is part of a cross-boundary link. Therefore, passengers must go through clearance for both the mainland and Hong Kong. And secondly, the clearance procedures for the mainland must, of course, be completed in accordance with the laws of the mainland. And thirdly, compared to the traditional separate co-location arrangement, the proposed co-location arrangement is only to make it convenient for passengers so that the clearance locations for both sides are located in one place, that is the West Kowloon Station. This is to make it convenient passengers and give play to the efficiency of the high rail speed link. But then it does not change in any way the obligations and the rights of passengers in going through clearance. It also has not changed the immigration arrangements for Hong Kong. Now, there are views in the community that the co-location arrangement will set a bad precedent and it undermines the one country, two systems. The SAR government does not subscribe to such a viewpoint. I would like to stress once again that the co-location arrangement is for the XRL to fully realize its efficient arrangement. There is no political agenda behind it. Please do not adopt any or go for any conspiracy theory and come up with unsubstantiated speculation. The step 2 is for the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, NPCSC, to approve and endorse the cooperation arrangement by making a decision. In accordance with Article 57 of the Constitution of the PRC, the NPC is the highest lawmaking body. The Standing Committee is the standing organization of the NPC. Article 37 of the Constitution states that for all systems practiced in the SAR, they must be provided for by the prescribed by the NPC, and also it's stated too in the Constitution that this is within the powers of the NPC. That's why the Standing Committee of the NPC could make a decision and provide a sound legal basis for the co-location arrangement. Step 3, both sides will implement the arrangement respectively through their own procedures. In Hong Kong, there will be a need for local legislation. This will allow the Legislative Council to perform their duties on the question of co-location. And they could also local legislation would provide a legal basis for the arrangement. The SAR government believes the three-step process is in line with one country, two systems. It is not against the basic law. The SAR government fully appreciates that the community is concerned about security and other issues. The government will take multiple steps to ensure the safety and security of passengers. Perhaps I could briefly explain the arrangement, and the Secretary for Security will be happy to answer questions later. First of all, for the Hong Kong State section of the SRL, the passengers will have to use their actual names to buy tickets. This is to confirm their identity, and all baggages must be subject to security control. And there will be also there will be in the cross-boundary restricted area control. Only travelers, railway staff, and station staff are allowed to enter the cross-boundary restricted areas. This is to prevent non-authorized personnel from entering the restricted areas. Passengers will have to go through the Hong Kong port area and complete the clearance procedures before they can enter the mainland port area. For arriving passengers from the mainland, they must first go through the mainland port area to complete the exit clearance procedure before they could enter the Hong Kong port area. And then Hong Kong law enforcement officers will complete the entry procedures before these passengers are allowed into Hong Kong. And also for the arrival and departure levels, they are segregated. This will ensure effective separation of arriving and departing passengers. So passengers cannot circumvent the Hong Kong port area to enter or exit either places illegally. If necessary, assistance could be rendered. Passengers could seek assistance from staff of the West Kowloon Station, and also they could seek assistance from the Hong Kong police station, and approach the police report center for assistance. And also they could seek assistance from immigration staff. After they enter the mainland port area, passengers may seek assistance from the XRL staff or the mainland agency stations therein. There will be instructions shown in the station and train compartments on ways to seek help. Apart from the usual security measures, the Security Bureau will set up an emergency task force on emergency response and rescue issues with the mainland to draw up emergency rescue plans. There will be regular drills to deal with emergencies, and also there will be a liaison officer system. The emergency incidents include fire, train failures, urgent medical assistance, terrorist attacks, handling of dangerous goods or chemical goods, public health large-scale public health incidents, and so on. Both parties will cooperate closely to respond to emergencies in the fastest and quickest possible way. And also there will be cooperation liaison mechanism to be established. They will deal with property management, quarantine arrangement, day-to-day clearance operations, and so on, to make sure that the clearance procedures will be smooth, efficient, and safe. Madam Chair and members, the SAR government hopes the Legislative Council will support the co-location arrangement so that the Hong Kong section of the XAR could be operated in the most efficient manner and provide the most convenient service for passengers. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. I now invite members to ask questions. James Toh and then Alice Mack. For how long? 5 minutes for both Q&A. Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is my question. Well, even the Chief Executive herself has said that for the co-location arrangement, it is very controversial, and she has said that she did not expect any plain sailing. So I think the idea has been mooted for 7 or 8 years. All along, even for the pro-establishment camp as well as the pan-democrats, we've always been asking for an early announcement in relation to the broad directions as well as the legal aspects of the issue. We should be told about it and we should be consulted on it. But the administration has been keeping us in the dark. The government would only talk to the mainland counterparts. For 7, 8 years, this has not been discussed. The government knows that it is controversial. The SJ has said that there are different views. It also involves major issues in the basic law and major principles like the application of mainland laws in Hong Kong, whether part of our jurisdiction has been carved out, whether it is a violation of the basic law, and whether it is in line with one country, two systems. So my question is, how come that there isn't any public consultation? For the so-called 3-step process, I don't think you have included public consultation. And then for the Palace Museum, the Chief Secretary at that time has now become our chief executive. There wasn't a consultation expected in the beginning under C.Y. Leung's administration. Later on, there was a consultation, even though it may be a sham one. Now, Carrie Lam has become the chief executive. The arrangement is even worse than that for the Palace Museum. We don't even get a fake consultation. Are you going to salvage the situation? Are you saying that you dismiss public opinions? You don't give weight to public opinions? You have given us a 30-page document. You have also talked about a few options that you have considered, and you have said that they are not feasible. Now, in the community, and many experts have also referred to different arrangements, say the different models and different arrangements for collocation of the facilities in other places. I think they are all worth our efforts in relation to a further study. Now, SJ, I think you have been talking about this for a week, and yet you have yet to give an undertaking. And Carrie Lam has also flown to Singapore for a visit. You are always dodging the question. You try your best to dodge the question. You would never be asked, you will never be made to answer questions concerning consultation. It's even worse than Paris Museum. You just want to present a fait accompli to us. You will just secure enough votes and then you will rush it through. You'll get the NPCSC approval and then you have got the establishment camp and you have already disqualified some members. So are we going to give weight to public opinion? I dare not say that the public will certainly support you or not, but at least proceduralize in terms of procedural justice. Why don't you give us a few months' time so that the public can tell you what they think? And then we have also got wisdom in the community. They can participate in the consultation process rather than just writing up articles, and they can give you their advice. Now, for Carrie Lam, she was supposed to be very capable. She may think that she's the wise man. She may think that her recommendation is the best one, and all other options are not good enough. Is this what we expect from her so-called new governance under Carrie Lam's administration? Secretary. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. To, for your questions. Let me answer the questions in two parts. Yes, this has been going on for many years. In the past, on other occasions, we have already said that why we have to spend so much time on it. But then it wasn't as what Mr. James To has described, that is black box operation. For the issues that we have to look into, whether legal or operational, well, indeed, they are complicated. Therefore, we have taken more time than expected, and this is understandable. And then for many years, we have paid attention to the views of the community. Otherwise, you would not have noticed that in our annex to the electrical paper, we have set out the various alternative options that we have studied. And the annex is exactly a reflection of what we have heard from the electrical and from the society at large. Say, for example, we have included the idea of onboard clearance. Exactly, there's an idea from Dennis Kwok in the past. So are you going to consult the public? So why don't you answer the question? Please wait for the SJ to answer the question. Allow me to answer your question. We do respect the views of the electrical and the public, and therefore, as soon as we are ready with the recommendation, we made an announcement on the 25th of July last week. From now on, we'll be very happy to listen to the public. Are you going to have consultation? In the future, we will continue to collect public opinions. We also want to have further communication with the electrical. We do not rule out the possibility that there are other channels for communication. Even for the Palace Museum, we conducted a fake consultation exercise. Ms. Alice Mack, please switch on the microphone, Ms. Mack. Madam Chair, if we want XRL to succeed, we must have the co-location arrangement so that we can have an efficient service for the convenience of the passengers. Well, in the past, a lot has been said. That is, in the absence of co-location, and if we have separate location, that means we have to go to Futian for the clearance, then it is just like another through train. So we know about the significance of co-location for the XRL. And then for the citizens in Hong Kong, whether we work or whether we use it for our daily lives, it will be a great convenience. Yesterday, we went to the XRL and we took a look of the facilities ourselves. We went to Shek Kong. We looked at the trains. First of all, I would like to express our gratitude towards everybody who have worked for the project. I would like to thank all the workers. Yesterday, we were there, and the working conditions were indeed very poor. But then our workers have contributed a lot. They have put in a lot of efforts, and owing to their hard work, we have got this XRO service. Therefore, we have to express our gratitude towards our workers. Now, we, of course, know the advantages of having the XRL, and I don't need to go over the arguments. SJ, I don't know what motive they have got, but then there are people who don't want to have co-location arrangements. We have got a lot of idioms being thrown out, saying that it is secession, black box operation. There are also other slogans being thrown out. And then we have also got experienced legal professionals saying that if we allow a piece of land to be leased at WKS, then come another day, another part of Hong Kong will be carved out as well. So is it really the case that is today you will lease part of WKS and then in future you will be leasing another part of the Central or Tsim Sha Tsui to the mainland? A few months ago, the previous term administration said that the former term administration tried to impose it on the incoming administration. Now the previous term administration has got everything ready. Now the new term government is making an announcement, and now you stand being accused of operating in a black box situation. It seems that they have abandoned common sense and they don't mind being self-contradictory. So SJ, experienced legal experts have said that maybe tomorrow you're going to lease part of the Central District, just like you are leasing part of the West Kowloon District. SJ, if I don't understand it incorrectly, then as far as the legal opinion is concerned, I've already said that that is absolutely impossible. And in fact, other legal scholars have also pointed out that this is not going to happen. Maybe I should talk about the background, and let me talk about the operation. It is going to be very clear-cut. Now, on this occasion, we have to set up the mainland port area within the West Kowloon Station. This is all because we have constructed the XRL. We want to release the full potential of the XRL. Therefore, we want the co-location arrangement. The Hong Kong government won't, for no reason at all, to set up another area similar to this and to bring in mainland jurisdiction. Well, in fact, this is not something the SARG can do unilaterally. In my opening remarks, I've already said that on this occasion, we need the joint discussion of the mainland authority as well as the Hong Kong government before this can be implemented. Moreover, there are two steps. That is, first of all, we need the agreement of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress. And then for step 3, local legislation will be necessary in Hong Kong. So as to the worry that you referred to coming from an experienced legal expert, legally and factually speaking, that scenario is impossible to happen. So I hope that in future, we won't be getting similarly exaggerated examples to scare us. I'm afraid this is just going to be repeated time and again. Your time is up, Mr. Charles Mok. I've also found that in order to support the XRL and the co-location arrangement, there are people who have been citing illogical arguments to say that they support the arrangement, and they're doing it at the expense of one country, two systems. Recently, some chambers of commerce have also referred to the argument put forward by Alex Mack. That is, if we don't have co-location arrangement, then we are just getting another through train, and it won't be different from the existing one. Well, if you look at the data from the government, I think indeed it is misleading. Yes, it is said that it will provide greater convenience. However, are we going to go after convenience at the sake of important legal principles and even one country, two systems as provided for under the Basic Law, and it is something given to us by the Basic Law? In the opening remarks of the SJ, he has said that the recommendation doesn't go against one country, two systems, it doesn't go against the rule of law, but we have certain examples to say that you do breach such principles. Now, we have got a lot of publicity. I think the government is being irresponsible. You are the one in power. You should alert the citizens to the relevant risks. You shouldn't be lobbying for our support, saying that there won't be a problem. We have been alerting you to the possible risks, and yet you are saying that everything would be fine. You are the government, and you should not have adopted such an approach. I think you're trying to impose it on us. It is said that we are worried that come another day, another piece of land will be leased to the mainland. You've said that this won't be done for no good reason. But what will be the justification? What about your objective criteria? Can you cite the chapter and verse for your legal basis? And where do you define a rationale which is justifiable? And then on this occasion, you're going to lease the land to the mainland authority. In future, are you going to lease a piece of land to another country? And is there any legislation governing such arrangements? Or is it simply that you have the word and then it will be done? Now, as I have said, it is again something imposed on us. And then you will say that it is innovative. On the platform and inside the train compartment when it is motion, despite on Hong Kong soil, we are getting movable boundaries because in future it will be subject to mainland jurisdiction. I haven't seen the same degree of innovation for other pieces of legislation. I have to say that we haven't seen such innovation. So again, it is something imposed on us and you want to rush us through. As James To has said, you haven't thought through it thoroughly, and there hasn't been a public consultation. In fact, there are many other options available, and you can compare the pros and cons, and you should spend time to clarify the misunderstanding. So are you going to conduct a public consultation? Have you weighed the pros and cons? Have you really considered whether there is time to do so? So please tell us why no consultation at all.
Secretary, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Mok, for your questions. As I said in my opening remarks, as we discuss the matter with the mainland authorities, we make sure we abide by the one country, two systems and the basic law. So the guiding principles are not in conflict with what Mr. Mok said just now. Mr. Mok, how come this is such an innovative approach, but we're not doing the same with other legislation? Well, yes, for this proposal, there is an innovative side, but at the same time, I must say that we are actually making reference to the Shenzhen Bay Port model. And the so-called innovative side, or the one as described by Mr. Charles Mok, is because there are practical needs for that. We need to deal with the question of co-location at the West Kowloon Station. All along, the government has been responsible in handling this matter. We want to implement this arrangement for the overall interest of Hong Kong. We want to consolidate Hong Kong's position as transport node. So we have the duty to explain the arrangement to the public and publicize the arrangement. And as I said, in the next few months, we will be listening carefully to the views of the community, including the views of the Legislative Council. And we believe that is the same in effect as public consultation, but we would not rule out other approaches. So we could have further communication with the Legislative Council and the community, as well as listen to the views. We do not rule out other options. Mr. Chen, would you like to clarify? Yes, I'd like to clarify a point. Mr. Mok said the administration has been providing misleading information. I just want to state here, since 2000-something, we proposed the construction of the XRL, and since that, all the information we published to the public and the Legislative Council is all true. Mr. Dennis Kwok, well, the members are so concerned why there's a public consultation or not, because we have no trust in you, and there are many issues, and these are all reasonable questions. Now, for the mainland port area, under the co-location arrangement, how are the powers to be affected under the one country, two systems and basic law? Now, some senior legal professionals say that one co-location can be done through Article 118 and 119 of the basic law. But then I don't see how these articles are related to co-location. But then there are other relevant quotations. For example, Article 22 3, for all offices set up in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, they must abide by the laws of the region, and then this also extends to personnel of these offices. And what do we care most about? Freedoms, personal safety. For example, Article 28, no arbitrary arrest or detention. Or Article 35, we say that we have the right to confidential legal advice. We have a choice of lawyers. For such powers, or rights rather, how will they be affected in the mainland port area of the West Kowloon Station? There's been no explanation clearly. That's why we need public consultation. If you are so confident that this arrangement is in accordance with the basic law and the basic rights and protections of the people of Hong Kong under the basic law would not be affected, then you could put it to a public consultation. For example, I can just ask you, if I enter the port area at the West Kowloon Station and I'm arrested by a mainland law enforcement officer, can I call my Hong Kong lawyer? What about my rights under Article 28 and 35 of the basic law? Do they still apply? Or is it the case that the basic law and other laws of Hong Kong no longer apply in the mainland port areas? Is this an unreasonable question? No. Many Hong Kong people are asking the same question. Why do we have no trust in you? Now, initially when Eva Jang came to the Legislative Council to seek funding approval, she said they would consider all possibilities, on-board clearance or separate location arrangement. They would all have economic merits. How come at the time you said you would consider all options, but now you're telling us co-location is the only way out? There's no any other approach. So that's why Hong Kong people don't trust you. They are suspicious. It makes sense. Now, so my question is, what if I'm arrested by mainland law enforcement officers in the mainland port area at the West Kowloon Station? Do I have the right to call my lawyer in Hong Kong? This is the right given to me under the basic law. How can I do it? Secretary for Justice. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Kwok. I think we should approach this whole issue in the right attitude. We could appreciate the public may have various questions, but please note here, as I explained earlier, we're dealing with clearance procedures for 2 places. The only purpose of the Hong Kong section of the XRL is to take passengers between Hong Kong and the mainland. So that's why we need to deal with the clearance procedures on the Hong Kong side and the mainland side. Now you can imagine, if it is not co-location, it is separate location, then what's the difference? For separate location, there will be 2 separate locations for the clearance procedures on both sides. But now we are putting the clearance procedures for both sides in the same place. So, but for the obligations and rights of passengers and the laws that apply, they are the same. They have not changed. So under co-location or separate location, the rights of passengers, the laws that apply to the mainland port areas or Hong Kong port areas, they do not change. Now, the question was, and as I said in my opening remarks, at the West Kowloon Station, we will set up various working groups to deal with various incidents. Cases like seeking assistance and so on, they could be dealt with. Under the basic law, we are given rights and protections. And do these articles apply in the mainland port areas? Do we need to, do mainland law enforcement officers have to comply with the basic law? Now, I need to clarify that we have submitted the paper to the Legislative Council. That's paragraph 22. It states clearly that in the 07 to 2008 basic law, the Chief Executive already announced in the policy address, rather, that the government will start considering the co-location arrangements. And in 2009 to 10, the SL government formally made the funding application to the Finance Committee for the construction of the Hong Kong section of the XRL. It indicated that the government would study the implementation of the co-location arrangement. Mr. Kwok mentioned that the previous Secretary for Transport and Housing mentioned various options. Yes, that's true, but he seemed to have omitted that at the same time the Secretary for Transport and Housing also made it clear that the objective was to go for co-location arrangement. But when the rail line was commissioned, there's not yet co-location arrangement. They will see whether there are any interim arrangements. But then the important thing is that we must still ensure that the XRL is efficient and its economic benefits would not be undermined in any way. Now, I'm referring to the verbatim record of the Legislative Council. Mr. Chen Ying. Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, there are various plans in the pipeline, the Bay Area, One Belt and Road Initiative, and so on. Hong Kong must also play a role in all these national development plans. Hong Kong wants to be linked up to the largest high-speed rail network in the world, and we want to substantially shorten our distance to with different cities along the coastline. It will help tourism, logistics, and other trades in Hong Kong. So it will provide a better economic and investment environment for Hong Kong. Now, for passengers, if they leave home and they go to the West Kowloon Station and they don't need to consider the weather, and then they could take the high-speed train and reach mainland cities quickly. So in future, it will change the traveling habits of Hong Kong people going to the mainland. As for mainland passengers, they could come to Hong Kong easily on the XRL. It will bring a lot of opportunities for the retail and catering industries in Hong Kong. In 2016, 221 million passengers travel between Hong Kong and the mainland. On average, there are about 600,000 passengers who travel on land between Hong Kong and the mainland per day. And I expect more passengers will switch to the XRL to travel between the two places, to visit families, friends, for business, for study, and so on. I don't think these passengers would be too concerned that because they have entered the mainland port area in the West Kowloon Station, they feel uneasy. That's why I'm all in support of the co-location arrangement. Yesterday, we visited the West Kowloon Station. The MTRCL told us that at the West Kowloon Station, there are over 4 million square feet of clearance areas, port areas. On top, there's a space for 3 buildings with some 3 million square meters of floor space. The government could sell this floor space. So can I ask whether the government has a timetable for selling the 3 million square meter of floor space? If you do have a timetable, have you looked into the different scenarios with or without co-location? Would there be a difference on the price of this floor space? Now, for the EIRR, has it counted the sale of the 3 million square meters of floor space? Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chen, for the questions. First of all, for the West Kowloon Station and the superstructural construction. Now, we know, of course, the clearance areas are underground in the basements, level 1 to 4. And then for the ground floor space, it will become a green area for public open space. But of course, there are other sites which could be sold through tender by the government. The return rate has not counted the land sales proceeds. Now, some 3 million square feet of commercial floor space or square rather 3 million square meters of commercial floor space, while in Central the latest figure is some $50,000 per square meter. So that means there could be proceeds of 80 to $100 billion. It's a substantial amount. I think the government should give us more information soon, because it helps us in assessing the financial position of the XRL. And then there will be retail and catering areas in the station. Would this be operated by the MTRCL? How are you going to set the rental level? For shops and restaurants in the West Kowloon Station, through a service contract, we will put the MTRCL in charge of these areas. But in terms of the economic return rate, perhaps I could give you more information. Apart from the commercial floor area, in working out the investment return rate, you see that we have worked out time saved by passengers, 39 million hours in a year. That's the equivalent of $90 billion of economic benefits. And also, after the XRL is completed, it could provide, 10,000 jobs for Hong Kong people. And assuming the salary is $15,000 on average, that's $115 million per month, $1.8 billion per year. So financially, we can see the financial economic benefits of the XRL. But when we consider the return of infrastructure, we don't just look at economic benefits, we look at the social benefits and also our links with neighboring places and countries and our links with the world. Thank you.
Mr. Martin Leong. Thank you, Madam Chair. 2 questions. I'm sure they can be addressed within the 5-minute limit. First of all, for the co-location arrangement, it is something new for the one country, two systems policy. It is an exceptional case, and it is only natural for queries to be raised in relation to the co-location arrangement. Now, among the public views raised, I want to know whether the SJ or the 2 directors of bureaus regard them as something that hasn't been considered, or those are I want to know whether they think that they are constructive and whether there are certain issues that you think you need to give a reply or respond to. And then another question is that for the co-location arrangement, I think that's key to the full realization of the potential of the XRL. And for the business travelers and also for visitors going to the mainland to visit families, they are important. And it is also important for enhancing our connectivity for the sake of economic development. So what is your assessment? How would it help with our logistics industry, tourism industry, as well as the trade industry? And what about our status as a transport hub? And what about our link with the Greater Bay Area? And what about its impact on our role in the Belt and Road Initiative? Now, I understand that there are queries about the economic benefits. Are you going to update the information? Are you going to quantify the long-term economic benefits that I've referred to? SJ or the Secretary for Transport? I'll take up the first part of the question. Thank you, Mr. Liu, for your question. Well, in simple terms, both prior to and after the announcement, as I have said, we have been paying attention to public opinions. As of today, since the publication of the arrangements, we have been studying the broad principles and we have been studying the broad directions. So the views expressed so far have all been studied by us. As to the more specific opinions, some of them are new and we have to consider them. I think there are 2 ways to deal with them or to follow them up. First of all, for views expressed, if we believe that they're going to help us, and if it points to an area that we need to fine-tune our proposals, then we will study the matter further so as to improve our arrangement concerning co-location of the facilities. And then, if there are views in relation to the operational arrangements or security concerns, we may think that they are not justifiable, but it doesn't mean that we're going to dismiss them. We'll still try our best to give an explanation, and we'll try to find a way to make sure that the citizens don't need to worry about such concerns. It doesn't mean that we'll just dismiss them simply because that we don't agree. That won't be the approach that we adopt. So I would like to defer to Mr. Chen to answer the other part of the question. Mr. Chen. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the indirect economic benefits, I think for many infrastructural projects, usually we don't talk much about the indirect long-term economic benefits, but then we can learn from the overseas experience, and that's the basis of our projection. For the high-speed rail network in Europe, say, for example, there are two cities both trying to become a station along the high-speed rail line. For a city serving as a station for the high-speed rail, would see an additional economic growth by way of 2 to 3%. And then, as I have said, we can link up the air transport as well as the rail transport. And in year 2016, for air cargo, for air passenger volume, it was 7 million. And then in 2024, with the third runway system, it will become 100 million passengers. In other words, our aviation center will be connected with the high-speed rail network via the WKS, and it can connect us with both Europe as well as the ASEAN countries. So the long-term economic benefits will be huge. And then for the Greater Bay Area, the total population is huge, and also for the total GDP, it is $1,400 billion, and it is same as that in the San Francisco Bay Area. Therefore, the economic impact will be huge, and I hope that everybody will take a positive view and you will adopt a longer-term vision, so that for the 26 km Hong Kong section of the XRL, it is indeed important for our future development. Mr. Lee, as for us, well, for the two questions asked by Mr. Liu, I think he would like to know whether we haven't anticipated some of the views expressed concerning security problems. My answer is no. Of course, others have said that perhaps we should borrow the model concerning the U.S.-Canadian arrangements. Well, for us, collocation is for the sake of convenience, and we welcome this. For the U.S.-Canadian model, it is a one-way approach. That is, for Canadians going to the U.S., there is pre-clearance, but not the other way around. So this is not the same for us here. For the UK-France arrangement, it is a two-way arrangement. So it is a matter of pairing the facilities. For us to do the same, then in Hong Kong, say, for example, we have a paired-up facility between Hong Kong and Shenzhen, and then between Hong Kong and Guangzhou, and then between Hong Kong and Beijing. But then it means that we're going to overlap with what we have already got. And then you can sort of refer to option 6 in the annex to the paper. It is a matter of separate location arrangement. It is a matter of having a hub station only. But by having the current recommendation, it means that we can cover all the cities. Mr. Horace Cheung, now we are talking about the XRL. Let's go back to the background. Well, it was Hong Kong that took up the initiative to construct the Hong Kong section of the XRL. We want to be connected with the efficient high-speed rail network on the mainland. We want to go to Beijing, Xiamen, Shanghai, etc. We want to reach the mainland cities, and we want to work through the high-speed rail network to go to overseas countries. I think this is important for the development of Hong Kong. And to be frank, we must have a co-location arrangement. I'm sure everybody can understand that this is the key. As Legislative Council members, it is important for us to pay a site visit personally so that we know about the project, we know about the design. By understanding more, then we can come back here and vote one way or the other. Otherwise, we can't be convincing when we make our remarks. The administration has said that we are having the three-step process to implement the co-location arrangement. I think it is a sound idea. This is because the legal basis is sound. We are going to get the authorization from the NPCSC, and we can be sure that it is in line with the one country, two systems. And then for the third step, there will be the local legislation. It will be a transparent process. In other words, I don't worry about the legal basis. I think it can withstand challenges. But then, of course, there are also other concerns from the community, and we need clarification. Today, I do not expect the SJ or the two directors of bureaus to be able to give clear answers to each and every question asked. But I hope that since we are sort of having the first step, you are going to talk to the mainland, and you will come up with a cooperation arrangement. I hope within that context, you can address the concerns of the public, and you bring the answers back to Hong Kong so that we can address them within the third step of the process. Say, for example, many have asked as to whether we can still access Facebook within the MPA, whether we can call 999 for help while we are on board a train. I think these are real questions, and I hope that you can seek answers to such questions while you carry out step one of the three-step process. So make sure that you will bear in mind the questions and concerns expressed by the LegCo as well as the public, and then you try to address them, and then hopefully we can have them accommodated in the third step of the process. So are you going to give an undertaking that you're going to do this? So for information that the public would like to get, where are you going to provide the information? SJ. I'll answer the question to be supplemented by my two colleagues. I agree with Mr. CHEUNG. In fact, we have always been taking such an approach. For the views expressed in the past week or so, we have already started to collate the information. And before, during, and after step one, we'll be trying hard to follow up on the views expressed. Now, you talked about detailed questions and detailed concerns. In fact, we have already been following them up. So I can undertake that the SARG will do likewise. My colleagues may want to supplement. Mr. John Lee, S4S. Thank you, Madam Chair. We are grateful to such a suggestion. We hope that citizens have nothing to worry about, and it is a convenient service. It is something new, and I can understand the worries. Just now you referred to the dialing of the 999, and I hope that I know that citizens want to have something that they're familiar with. Well, maybe we can learn from the early experience of the Shenzhen Bay port. We'll try to anticipate the teething problems, say, for example, the dialing of 999, and we have also got contingency plans. For the interest of time, I don't think I can give you the details now. However, before the commissioning of the XRL, we will start working on them. And we will be having working groups, task groups, and we are also drawing up plans to address emergencies like a fire or a major incident or request for medical assistance. So we can indeed learn from the experience of the Shenzhen Bay Port. Mr. Chen, anything to add? Thanks, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Cheung, for your questions. As Mr. Lee has said, we're working groups and they will have to work on a lot of issues. Now, for the cooperation arrangement, this is going to be a framework arrangement. There are still a lot of details for us to follow up on with our counterparts. We have listened to the feedback of the public, and we have promised to truthfully reflect the concerns to mainland authorities. I think it is legitimate for the citizens to want to have their rights maintained. So we have got a few working groups, like one on the emergency response. We will collect the views of the public. We'll make sure that the passengers using the WKS have nothing to worry about, and they will have a happy experience. You have said that there will be a number of working groups to deal with issues that they may encounter in taking the journey.
Now, if members of the public or this council have such questions, they can write to you, or we can pass them on to you, right? Yes, surely. Dr. Fernando CHEUNG. Well, the public are concerned that with this co-location arrangement, it's more about cessation arrangement. You are now ceding part of Hong Kong to say this is no longer Hong Kong. Therefore, we don't need to comply with the basic law. So you are undermining fundamentally the rights and protections offered by the basic law. Article 18 of the basic law states clearly that national laws may not apply in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, if you want to put in place co-location, definitely you will go against Article 18 of the basic law. So without the protection of the basic law, well, how do we even start talking about one country, two systems? You know, the proposal they put forward is that they could go by Article 20 of the Basic Law, ask the MPCSC to authorize Hong Kong to cede part of Hong Kong and declare that this part is no longer Hong Kong. And you can actually do that. But here we're talking about the basic protections for the people of Hong Kong. If you can do that, then we're just talking about 15 minutes of convenience at the expense of protections afforded by the basic law. If you can do this now, you can do anything in future. For consulates general, the liaison office, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the commissioner's office, and so on, they are all on land within the boundaries of Hong Kong. The Hong Kong laws apply to all these places. They are protected by the laws of Hong Kong. Hong Kong people are protected by the laws of Hong Kong when they are in Hong Kong. That's stated clearly in the basic law. If you can now casually say that the XRL must be efficient, therefore you can cede part of Hong Kong to someone else. In that case, how can you tell the people of Hong Kong that in future you won't do something similar again? Can you tell the people of Hong Kong that in accordance with Article 20 of the Basic Law, you can just casually ask the MPCSC to authorize you to apply other laws of the mainland that Hong Kong people don't want? So just for convenience, you undermine the protections of the basic law for the people of Hong Kong. That's beyond our bottom line. We cannot accept it. The so-called three-step process. Step 2. You say the NPCSC will give you authority. To do what? What sort of authority? Secretary for Justice. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Cheung. I'd like to respond to several points. First of all, it is definitely not, as Dr. Cheung has put it, that we'll do it casually. As I said, since we started planning the construction of the XRL, the SAR government already indicated that it would have to consider or study or explore the co-location arrangement. We've made it clear the objectives and the necessity of exploring the one co-location arrangement. So it's definitely not casual or arbitrary. So please never use such terms again on the question of co-location arrangement. Second point, Dr. Cheung said we are giving up one country, two systems for 15 minutes of convenience. Definitely that is not our objective. Definitely that is not what we hope to do. I made it very clear in my opening remarks that when the mainland authorities and the Hong Kong SAR government discussed the co-location arrangement, the principles we both endorsed are that all arrangements must be in line with one country, two systems. So we have no incentive, we have no intent or no plans to go against one country, two systems or the basic law, and there is no need to do so. The third point, Dr. Cheung said that this is not co-location, but rather it's cessation. Rather secession. Well, again, this is not true, because for the mainland port area in the West Kowloon Station, is to be leased out to the mainland authorities by Hong Kong. The ownership remains the same, just that we are making reference to the Shenzhen Bay Port model. So it's about the application of laws. It's about allowing the necessary mainland clearance procedures to be carried out. That's why, for a specific purpose at a specific location, there is the enforcement of mainland laws. And third point, please continue, Secretary. Members, please. Members, please, do not disrupt the Secretary. Well, anyway, the time is past, so please be brief, Secretary. Well, actually, for the questions Dr. Cheung asked, we've provided answers in the paper. We are using a lease to deal with the site issue that has nothing to do with jurisdiction. And we are making reference to the Shenzhen Bay Port model. I have made this very clear on another occasion. Mr. Christopher Cheung. Thank you, Madam Chair. The co-location arrangement is being challenged on various fronts. I think the three-step process and the co-location arrangement could make sure we comply with the basic law. This is the best option. But then, unfortunately, those who oppose the arrangement only consider the political angle. They put forward things that would not possibly happen as examples, and they use that as the basis for their opposition. They have no regard to the economic and benefits to Hong Kong and the convenience afforded to passengers. Now, I joined the site visit at the West Kowloon Station. I also took the XRL train. I sat in a seat in the first class and the economy class, and even with my size, I find the seats to be very comfortable. And then there will be socket, there will be reading light, and there's some shade. And the seats could be turned around 180 degrees, so people could be seated face to face, and they could have conversations. Now, If it only takes us an hour or less to go to Guangzhou, it's the same as traveling by plane. We are talking about 26 kilometers of the XRL, and with that we can link up to high rails network of 200,000 kilometers, and we can reach all major cities in China. It's really convenient. And then I see some figures provided by the government. The forecast is that the initial passenger volume will go down by about 30%, some 4 million passenger trips. Why is it that the SAR is so convenient, but there will be fewer passengers? How did you arrive at the figures? How should we interpret the figures? Secretary for Transport and Housing. Thank you for the question. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to explain the projection. Well, we have been doing projections over different periods. Then at different periods, we had to consider the prevailing economic situation, the global economy, the traveling patterns of business travelers, leisure travelers, and so on. So the projections only apply to the circumstances prevailing. Now, by the third quarter of 2018, when the XRL is commissioned, and what will happen, we have to look at actual figures. For many infrastructural projects, they've been called white elephants. But then from our own experience or from international experience, we can see what actually happened. For the West Rail Line, it was also called a white elephant, but already now it's exceeding its capacity, is saturated. So we need to consider increasing frequencies to meet the demands of the public. And when the Hong Kong International Airport was being built at the Chek Lap Kok, people said it's a white elephant, but again, it's reached saturation. We need to build a third runway. For the Shenzhen Bay port, we initially expected 30,000 people per day to go through the border, but already last year, the figure is 105,000 passengers per day. So we're talking about major infrastructure projects, in particular cross-boundary projects. We shouldn't just look at its value in prevailing circumstances. From international experience, we can see the value of cross-boundary infrastructural projects would have value that far exceeds our expectation in 10 years' time. So we need to cast our sight further. And then we can see the XRL would prevent Hong Kong from becoming marginalized. High-speed rail development is the long-term trend, is an international trend. The high-speed rail link of the country may eventually extend to Asian countries or even European countries. So in future, people of Hong Kong may choose to take the plane, a cruise liner, or even a train to Europe. So we have to be responsible as we in quoting figures when we first started the project, but we can see, I'm sure in future, the outcome will far exceed our expectation. Your time is up, but you could follow up on another occasion, Mr. Cheung. Next, Mr. Siu Ka-chun. Thank you, Madam Chair. We have three principal officials here. I want to say this. Now, if someone makes a mistake, it's not because he's ignorant, but rather because he thinks he knows everything. Just now, Mr. Martin Liao asked them that are there any public views that they have not considered? And they actually dare say they have considered all views. They dare say that. They dare say that they have not considered. They have considered everything. They have not left out anything. But, in the past few weeks, things have been so confusing. You keep moving your goalposts as you quote the basic law, and you think your answers are all perfect. I don't know why you can be so confident. Now, my first question. From Futian to Guangzhou South, it takes 40 minutes for non-stop trains. From Futian to West Kowloon is 14 minutes. So in total, 54 minutes. How is it possible that from West Kowloon to Guangzhou is 48 minutes because the figures don't add up? Are you telling lies? That's the first question. Second question. Just now, Dr. Fernando CHEUNG asked about the leasing arrangement and the question of jurisdiction, how these two are related. Why is it that when you lease a site, then you don't need to apply the laws of Hong Kong? Now, you say the lease will go up to 2014. Does it mean that after 2014, you could definitely take the site back? And then when you take back a site, we could go back to, it could be returned to Hong Kong jurisdiction. That's a very important question. The third one is about consultation. You say you will listen to the views of Legislative more. But here we're talking about public consultation. In 2003, the Panel on Constitutional Affairs considered a paper, which is a guideline on public consultation. In the paper, it stated clearly what is meant by public consultation. It must be done in a timely manner. The objectives of the consultation must be stated clearly, and options must be provided for consideration, and which are the preferred options of the government, the scope of the consultation, the accuracy of the information, the duration of the consultation, the publicity effort, and whether the consultation results must be reported to the public as well. So this was a paper issued for the Panel on Constitutional Affairs in 2008. How come now you're telling us public consultation is just about listening to the Legislative and more interaction with the Legislative, and that's enough? No, we're not talking about piecemeal communication. We're talking about public consultation. Would you do public consultation? If you really care about the views of the public, how come that before you even complete the 3-step process in your APIs, you're already saying that there will be co-location at the for the West XRL? Is it the case that you don't care about the non-establishment camp, and you don't care about the Legislative? Secretary? Let me take the second and the third questions. Maybe my colleagues could add to the first question.
Leasing the land and jurisdiction. I've covered this point on another occasion. Well, for you to go through the clearance procedures, it means that it involves space. You need a counter, you need the personnel before you can go through and complete the clearance procedures. So we need venue, we need space, and therefore we are demarcating a mainland port area. Of course, when we do the design work, there are also security concerns as well as other considerations. However, the first and foremost element is venue when it comes to clearance procedures, and therefore there is a need to lease the area to the relevant mainland authorities. As to the question of jurisdiction, I don't think there's time to go into the details. However, if you look at the model of the Shenzhen Bay Port, I think it is clear. Yes, the land has been leased to Hong Kong in order to allow Hong Kong laws to be applicable. It will be regarded as part of Hong Kong. Now, in this case, it is the reverse of the Shenzhen model. You also asked a question about consultation. I've already said that we do attach a lot of importance to lawmakers' views who speak on their own, could speak for themselves or could speak on behalf of the people. I want to defer to Mr. Chen. Mr. Chen, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the question, Mr. Xu. As to the speed of the XRL, well, we have to understand that for the through train, it won't stop until it reaches the destination. For non-stop trains, it will slow down before reaching a station, and then there will be embarkation and disembarkation. It takes time. I just want to explain to members that on the day of commissioning, we are going to have 114 pairs of trains. Some have said that there are only 11 to Guangzhou. It isn't like that. I was only referring to trains going to Guangzhou. In fact, there are 61 pairs, 1 to Guangzhou South, and then 45 to Humen. And we understand that for our travelers as well as the mainland visitors, we have to find out about their demand. For us to go to Futian, 40 minutes, to Humen, 33, and to Guangzhou South, 48 minutes. To answer Mr. Hsu's question, as to whether we have already anticipated all the questions, I hope there won't be any misunderstanding. I think just now Mr. Lee, as well as talked about security concerns. Well, in fact, they have covered all the details. They have to look at each and every security weakness, and therefore, in relation to security issues, in fact, the Security Bureau has already considered all of them. For us, we talked about Facebook access and also making telephone calls. Such issues have been raised. Please keep it brief. We are going to reflect the views to the relevant mainland authorities. Mr. Poon Xiuping. Thank you, Madam Chair. If we have the XRL, it means that we get an additional option for the mode of transport going to the mainland. I hope that it will be commissioned in the third quarter of 2018 as scheduled. Yesterday, we went to take a look at ourselves. I understand it has been completed up to 95%, and 7,000 plus workers are working on it, and I hope that it is smooth, and I hope that the process is safe. I hope that we won't be having any safety problems just because we want to hurry up. Now I've got a few questions here. The Secretary has already said that for co-location to be implemented at the WKS, we need a three-step process. First of all, you talk about the cooperation arrangement. In your paper, yes, you have already given us the details. Understand that the negotiation is still ongoing. You talk about the right to use, the duration, the fee, as well as the repair and maintenance. You also talked about Hong Kong workers' employee rights and protection. I want to know when you're going to reach an agreement on the cooperation arrangement. Are you going to make public the details? That's my first question. And then for step 3, it is about local legislation. The administration's idea is to complete the process within 2017-18. So what's the earliest time that you will come to start the local legislative process? Are you confident that it can be completed next year? Otherwise, does it mean that you haven't got a fallback position and you can only defer the commissioning? It is said that we are going to get 10,000 more jobs with the commissioning of the XRL. In paragraph 14, you anticipated that there will be 100,000 XRL passengers per day, and some will come from the cross-boundary coaches. And it means that we can cut down on the carbon dioxide emissions. So you say that there will be more jobs, but what about the impact on the cross-boundary coaches? Have you considered the impact on the job opportunities related to the cross-boundary coaches? Who will answer the question? SJ? I will take up the first two questions. Now, for the first step in the three-step process, that's about the cooperation arrangement. And then step 2, we would like to ask the NPCSC to approve and endorse the arrangement. We hope that the 2 steps can be completed before end of this year. Of course, for the details, for the time being, we're not in a position to divulge them. As the Honourable Member has said, we are still trying to fine-tune the details, and we're still having discussion about some of the details. But eventually, we are going to make public the cooperation arrangement. And what happens is that you can make reference to what we did for the Shenzhen Bay Port. I think there is an element of cross-referencing. Now for steps 1 and 2, once completed, will be followed by step 3 as soon as possible. Our plan is to do it end of this year or beginning of next year. That is, upon completion of steps 1 and 2, we will immediately commence step 3. Maybe Mr. Chen can also take up the third question. Mr. Chen, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Poon, for your question. Well, for the passengers of the XRL, probably to a certain extent, there will be an impact on our existing transport service. It is both supplementary as well as competitive. Now, for the XRL in Guangzhou, you terminate at Guangzhou South. You can go to the Su by way of a shuttle bus, and you can also go to Foshan. There's a 30-minute ride, and then you can also go to Shaoxing, and you can also go to Guangzhou East. I believe that with the commissioning of the XRL, there will be some changes. Passengers will make their own choices. I don't think there will be an impact on the employees because we're going to have a net increase in the number of job opportunities. In other words, employees have more choices to make. They can have more to choose from. Mr. Frankie Yik, thank you, Madam Chair. All along, the Liberal Party is in support of the construction of the XRL as well as the co-location arrangement. Let me quote from paragraph 8 of the LegCo paper. That is, in July 2016, the State Council further approved the medium and long-term railway network plan. In other words, the target is to increase the total length of the high-speed rail network on the mainland to 30,000 km in 2020, covering more than 80% of the major cities, and to 38,000 km by 2025. Now, of course, my sector is about enhancing the ease of passenger flow and cargo flow. Therefore, the XRL will benefit the business travelers as well as other tourists. If we don't connect with the high-speed rail network, we are not making a wise choice. Hong Kong is a free society. We are free to express our own opinions. However, with the announcement of the co-location arrangement, in the past few days, we carried out a telephone opinion survey. We tried to find out from the public as to what they think about the co-location arrangement and the importance to the full realization of the XRL potentials. We have covered 1,071 respondents. 71% of those interviewed said that the co-location arrangement would be important for the efficiency of the XRL. The second question that we asked was that if we follow the recommendation of the government to adopt the Shenzhen Bay model, that is, we allow the mainland personnel to carry out CIQ and criminal jurisdiction at the MPA at the station, would they agree to that? For those who have clearly given an answer, 61.6% of those interviewed were in support, and of course some have said that they didn't support the idea. After all, Hong Kong is a free society. So we can see from the findings that the citizens are in support of the co-location arrangement. The Liberal Party will have a more in-depth public opinion poll, and then next week when we have our joint panel meeting, we are going to tell you the outcome of the opinion poll. So we just want to share with you the views of the public. I want to pause here. The Liberal Party is in support of the recommendation of the government. Thank you. Any public officers wishing to give an answer? Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I want to talk about the XRL. The network will reach 30,000 km with the 8 verticals and 8 horizontals, and we are having 26 km in the Hong Kong section. So that's quite a high proportion out of this 30,000 km long network. Many people have tried to compare the high-speed rail network and the air transport, but there are cities on the mainland that don't have an airport, and it means that the XRL or the high-speed rail network will have a high impact on them. For stations having a speed of 250 km or more, we have got 300 of them. Another 300 having a higher speed. In other words, a total of 600. So for travelers and visitors, if you start from Hong Kong, you can reach that many number of mainland cities. It is very convenient. And in future, the total mileage will be 30,000 km. It means that you can reach even more cities. In other words, the value of the XRL will be beyond our current day imagination.
Mrs. Regina Ip, the New People's Party is in support of the co-location arrangement for the XRL. Mr. Chen mentioned that for some cities in Europe, if they are served by a rail link, then they have higher economic growth. You're talking about cab stations, right? Like the Guangzhou South Station is like the airport. It can be linked to many other nodes of transport. And so if it's a hub city, then it has so much economic benefits. But ours is not. Ours is just it's not a hub station. Is that correct? So which European cities are you talking about? I'm talking about the stops along the way. Can you be more specific about the cities after the meeting? Are you talking about hubs or spoke stations? They're different. Yes, I could provide information to you afterwards. Yes, maybe we're not a hub, we're just a spoke. But Guangzhou South is a hub, but we're just a spoke linking to Guangzhou South. But still, in the long run, we should have good economic benefits, because then we could link up with the mainland's high-speed rail network, which will eventually be linked up with Burma and so on. So in the long run, there will be high economic benefits. That's why our party supports it. But then a question for Secretary for Security. Just now, it's been explained that our situation is not the same as Canada and the USA. They have one-way pre-clearance, and also our situation is not the same as Europe. In Hong Kong, we have pairing of cities, a pairing of stations. There is an exit and entry at both ends, and that's the stringent regulation. So without that arrangement, how would it impact on the security of Hong Kong or the country? Secretary for Security. Thank you, Mr. Steve. I think what you mean is that if we have co-location, but we don't do it like the way we do now. Let's say we allow the clearance authorities of the mainland to have law enforcement rights, and what are the risks? Now, the current arrangement is that we want clearance procedures for both places to be carried out in the same place. So it's not the US-Canadian approach, nor is it the UK-French approach. Now, if so, we have to be very careful with the duplication. Let's say for mainland authorities, they could only apply certain mainland laws, but not all. That means we need to use Hong Kong laws to fill the gap, and there will be the question of duplication of jurisdiction. And I'm very concerned about duplication of jurisdiction in two aspects. First, let's say there's a mainland criminal coming to the West Kowloon Station. Because of duplication of jurisdiction, that means Hong Kong's jurisdiction also applies to his case. So therefore, he could make a judicial challenge at the West Kowloon Station against the enforcement powers of the mainland personnel, because he's already in Hong Kong jurisdiction. And the court may take on the judicial challenge. Now, the judicial process may be lengthy. That means if it's a serious mainland criminal, he should have been arrested and be repatriated to the mainland by the mainland. And now we have this uncertainty about the judicial challenge process. And if the challenge is successful, then we have to deal with someone who has not broken the law in Hong Kong. He's only broken the law on the mainland, but then he can't go back to the mainland, so he'll be stuck in Hong Kong. So this is the risk. And so we shouldn't just look at the length of the judicial process. We have to look at the number of cases too, because on the mainland, the penalty for certain cases might be higher, and people may try to find a way to come to Hong Kong, so we have to be very careful about that. And also with duplication of jurisdiction, we may have to deal with people filing non-refoulement claims. As you know, in Hong Kong, we still have some 8,000 outstanding non-refoulement claims cases. In 2015 and 2016, for people trying to come to Hong Kong from the mainland illegally, and we're talking about non-Chinese there are some 6,000. At the same time, during those 2 years, we have received some 5,000 non-refoulement claims. Now, we have tight control at the boundary, but still, in 2 years, we have 6,000 illegal immigrants, non-Chinese illegal immigrants, finding their way into Hong Kong. And for 90% of the non-refoulement claims we've dealt with, they are not substantiated. They just come here for work. Now imagine if people take the XRL and come to the West Kowloon station, they could then file non-refoulement claims. If there's the Hong Kong jurisdiction, then we have to deal with these cases because Hong Kong laws apply. So we have to be very careful in dealing with such risks. So with the co-location arrangement, there won't be any duplication of jurisdiction, and so there won't be the loopholes I just mentioned. Thank you. Mr. Wan Shiu-Kin. I have a number of questions. I hope I have enough time. First, in response to the Secretary for Justice, he said that the concerns expressed by the Democratic Party don't exist, they're not real. But already here we're talking about president here, so why shouldn't we be concerned? This is a president, right? That's why members are asking valid questions. I don't know how long you will stay in the post. Even you said it won't be for too long. Would you become Eva Jiang II? Then who do we go to hold you responsible? Where do we find you to hold responsible? What if one day the liaison's office or the commissioner's office wanted to do something? Then if something happens, what do we do? So don't jump the gun. Don't jump to conclusions and mislead the public. Be pragmatic. Now, my question for you is that you have cited Article 20 time and again, and you try to hard sell the legal basis of the co-location arrangement. There are various legal authorities, including a member of the drafting committee, Mr. Martin Lee. He pointed out that Article 20 of the Basic Law is about powers for other things. So let me read it out. The Hong Kong Special Administrative Region may enjoy other powers granted to it by the National People's Congress, the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, or the Central People's Government. So the wordings are clear. And if this is the article that could cover everything that could allow us to overturn or override Articles 18, 28, 35, then why do we need to talk about anything else? It doesn't make sense. I'll give you an example so the public understand what I'm trying to say. So the CPG is giving you a knife. Originally, I give you all the powers, but now I give you a knife so you can castrate yourself. Is that what it means? Well, actually, other members asked you the question, you didn't answer it. What if the liaison office or other organizations want to do something, and if there are powers and given to us under Article 20, could they be extended to the mainland offices here? Well, of course, there are two schools of view. Some talk about efficiency and convenience, but others are talking about constitutional issues. That's what we're talking about. So it may not work out, or it may not add up, really. You said you considered co-location at Futian. You studied that option. What are the figures? How much quicker or slower by minutes would the process be? If you go by the Shenzhen Bay Port experience, then you should do it in Futian, not in Hong Kong. If you're doing it in Hong Kong, then it's not the Shenzhen Bay experience, because in Hong Kong we have the basic law. You are from the legal sector. You should know better than I do. There is a basic law here being applied, so that's why it cannot be done here. So either the one of the principal officials could tell us, really, do all the figures add up? Does it make sense? Maybe if the delay is by an hour, of course you have stronger reasons. But if the delay is just by 15 minutes, then the public may consider whether they want speed or other things. Now, in 2009, Eva Jiang said she kept an open mind. Many in the establishment camp forgot all about it, but many of you were here then. She said many options could still ensure economic benefits. It's not necessary just co-location. So can I ask government officials whether Eva Jiang lied at the time, or is it the case that the current government is lying? Or has anything changed? How can we trust you? I'm telling you, the public don't trust you, because here we're talking about the basic law. So my last question is, are there any reasons that prevent you from conducting public consultation? Why are you just resorting to sophistry? You say that you review the public consultation approach. You say you won't rule out any options. Don't say that. Just tell us whether you will have a public consultation or not. Secretary? Thank you, Mr. Wen, for your questions. Let me go back to history in answering your questions. You mentioned time and again what Mrs. Eva Jiang said at the time. Well, you have to be fair to her or to the public. At the time, the timing was different. And at the time, she also mentioned co-location and other options. If you studied the paper we submitted to LegCo for this meeting, and if you listened to our explanation just now, we did say that we looked into other options, including separate location, and we explained why co-location versus in relation to separate location. Definitely, co-location is the more superior option. So you can't just go back to past documents and just take one or two sentences out of context and say that now the SAR government is telling lies, or Mrs. Eva Jiang at the time lied. Both accusations don't make sense. We have to look at the circumstances and then try to understand the meaning of what was said at the time. Now, this may be a precedent. That's why the public are concerned. Mr. Wang said that's why it's reasonable. Well, I never said that it's not reasonable for there to be concerns in the community. What we're saying is that to address these concerns, or when we have concerns, they have to be objective and balanced. We shouldn't exaggerate issues as we consider the matter. The position of the government has always been that within the framework of one country, two systems and the basic law, we want to get this done properly. Of course, there are different views in the community. We respect all the views, and we will definitely continue to listen to views. For the debate on basic law and relevant legislation, well, with time constraint, I can't go into details. But Mr. Wang, what you said is just only one-sided. For example, Professor Albert Chen gave his views in Mingpao recently. So what I want to state again is we respect different views in the community, but we hope that as you consider different views, you will be balanced and objective. We want to do something good for Hong Kong. Well, your time is up. Perhaps members could follow up on another occasion. Before I invite Mr. Ben Chan to speak, I have already said at the beginning of the meeting that I will set aside 10 minutes to deal with the motion proposed by Dr. Fernando CHEUNG. Well, we see there are 25 members waiting to speak. We don't have much time. So, Dr. CHEUNG, would you consider allowing us to follow up on your motion in another meeting? Then I could invite more members to speak, because we don't really have much time for proper discussion of your motion, because if we go by the convention, we will decide first of all whether we will deal with your motion. Well, this is the first meeting. If you agree, then I will invite Mr. Kenneth Leung and Mr. Lok Chung-hong to speak as well. Well, let's set aside the last 5 minutes, and then we can allow at least Mr. Kenneth Leung to speak. No, 5 minutes won't be enough. We need to allow time for voting. We're not going to ask for separate vote, but other members may ask to do so, because 10 minutes is a reasonable time frame to deal with a motion. Because this is an important motion. I want the government to hear the aspirations of voters, that is, they want public consultation, so we can try to compress the discussion. Okay, then we'll leave the last 10 minutes for voting on whether we will deal with Dr. Fernando CHEUNG's motion. So the last to speak is Mr. Ben Chen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just now, someone talked about self-castration. Well, for the high-speed rail to reach Hong Kong, and for us to have a very convenient arrangement, that is co-location. Yet, if we abandon that idea, then that is what I called self-castration. The other day, an elderly person told me that we could imagine that by the time you are seated, having stowed away your luggage, by the time you reach Shenzhen, since there isn't any co-location, you have to take down your luggage, and then you have to queue up to go through the CIQ. Now, for other people, it may not be that difficult. But then for an elderly person, you can imagine that we've got hundreds of passengers. They may have to walk slowly, and they have to push their suitcases along, since they have to go through the X-ray checking machine. So it may take an hour. So this elderly person told me that he very much would like to have the co-location arrangement. This is because under the co-location arrangement, he could then go through the CIQ of both jurisdictions. By the time he reaches his home county, he can go out of the station directly, and then he can come back to Hong Kong the same day, and it would be very convenient. For the past few days, legal scholars with a pan-democratic background have been scaremongering. Now they are saying that we are advised not to go near the West Kowloon station because you may be grabbed and taken inside. Now it is fear mongering. Now you have to go into the station. You have to walk through the gates before you will see mainland personnel responsible for CIQ. I don't think this is different from any other clearance facilities. Now, even for other boundary crossing points, you have to go through the Hong Kong clearance first before meeting mainland clearance personnel. So you won't be arbitrarily arrested and taken away. So such suggestions are irrational. And then it is said that maybe part of Kowloon will be taken away, carved out. Well, for people who know little about the arrangements will really get worried. I think you need to think carefully about it. You have the three-step process, and it takes time. It takes almost a year's time. And it is said that we will have another Occupy movement in the 12 months in between. But of course, others are saying that we shouldn't talk about that anymore. It is frustrating. I don't think we should spend time and waste time on such unreasonable ideas. I think the co-location arrangement is something for the benefit of the citizens of Hong Kong. It makes our traveling easier, and it will also facilitate more exchanges with other places. So I don't think we should do the same again. That is, whenever something similar happens, then the pandemics will exploit our fears. But their prophecies have never turned out to be true. Say, for example, they have been talking about the arrival of the People's Liberation Army. For 20 years, we know that they have been law-abiding. Even when their premises have been challenged, others try to force their way into the barracks. They have returned the arrestees to the Hong Kong police. I visited the XRL station yesterday. I know that there are 3 blocks of developments on the podium. Can we be told about the value of the premises involved? Mr. Chen. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think I've mentioned this point. That is, on top of the West Kowloon Station, we have reserved land to build 3 commercial blocks. We are going to dispose of the relevant land by way of land disposal program. I think you can roughly come up with the high value involved. Other than the return to be attained, I hope you will also understand that there will be $90 billion arising from more job opportunities and $90 billion arising from time saved. And there are also other benefits that are indirect. But all in all, the message is that for any infrastructural projects, you can't just look at the economic benefits. This is because our long-term development and our long-term competitiveness will benefit, and it is also going to play a very important role in our aviation industry. Well, I think on this note, we end our time for questions and answers. I would like to thank the Secretary for Justice, the Secretary for Transport and Housing, as well as the Secretary for Security, as well as your public officers. Thank you for attending the special meeting of the House Committee. Now, we would like to deal with the motion. First of all, we need to decide on whether we want to handle Dr. Fernando CHEUNG's motion. So I think we should put the matter to the vote. Is there any claim for division? If we want to deal with the motion, then I will give you time to speak. I think the motion has already been tabled, so let's ring the bell for 5 minutes. Mr. CHEUNG, it's time for you to read out the wording of your motion. Yes, it's a very simple one. We would like the administration to carry out consultation. The Council requests the administration to appoint an independent organization so as to consult the public concerning the CIQ of the Hong Kong section of the XRL and list out different options. I think members understand that our panels are going to call a meeting to follow up on the co-location arrangements. 21 members haven't yet got to their chance to ask questions, so you may want to do so at the upcoming joint panel meeting. Voting begins. The question before you is that whether the committee agrees to deal with the motion raised by members. Please press the white button to indicate your presence. Are there any questions before I close the voting? No questions, then voting ends. Please show the result. The result is 18 for, 27 against, no abstention. I declare that the proposal has been vetoed. The meeting is adjourned.